Hans Holbein the Younger, born in Augsburg around 1497 and trained in the rigor of the Northern Renaissance, arrived in London with a talent that combined miniaturist precision, symbolic intelligence, and a rare ability to translate the spirit of his time into oil-painted surfaces. In 1533, while England vibrated under the political and religious tensions of the reign of Henry VIII, Holbein painted one of the most complex images of early modernity, the Ambassadors. It is a monumental double portrait, executed on oak panel, in which two cultured Frenchmen, Jean de Dinterville, diplomat and Lord of Policy, and Georges Selve, Bishop of Lavaur, pose in a serene attitude, but one loaded with subtexts, flanking a table crammed with scientific instruments, books, maps, musical objects. Nothing in the painting is casual. Every texture, every reflection, every number engraved on a quadrant, or every line on a celestial globe contributes to a visual thesis on knowledge, power, faith, and mortality in a neuralgic year, 1533. The year of Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn, of the ripening schism, of tense diplomacy among England, France, and the Holy Roman Empire, and of the Reformation advancing across Europe. Holbein, with a watchmaker's eye and a theologian's ear, erects a scene that at the same time celebrates the world and relativizes it. The two men face us with the assurance of those who have seen maps and dealt with kings. Dinterville, on the left, displays luxurious furs, a finely pommeled dagger, and a chain that indicates rank. He embodies the active life, the secular sphere, where prestige is measured in fabrics and missions. De Selve, on the right, dresses more soberly, a dark mantle, introspective expression, the gravitas of the humanist cleric. He represents the contemplative life, the gaze toward the eternal. Between them rises a table covered with an oriental tapestry, whose meanders, flowers, and interlacings Holbein depicts with textile exactitude. Upon that field of color rests an inventory of the cosmos. On the upper shelf, a celestial globe with constellations, a torquetum or astrolabe, sundials, quadrants, dials, instruments to fix the positions of stars and measure time, the science of the heavens, the calculation of the invisible, the numerical architecture of the firmament. On the lower shelf, a terrestrial globe with routes, shorelines, and names that demarcate ambition and trade. A lute with a nacreous body, recorders, compasses, and an arithmetic or music book open, the science of the earth, harmony and reason. The broken string of the lute, a detail the eye discovers after its initial amazement, resounds like a diagnosis. Human harmony has been broken. It is 1533. The Reformation and politics are severing bonds. Music itself, emblem of concord, shows fissures. Holbein does not sermonize. With a cut string he hints at what history will shout in decades of wars and dissensions. But the most audacious stroke of the composition is that oblong, strange shape that floats in the lower area of the painting, tilted diagonally like a senseless plank. Whoever steps aside to an oblique angle or raises a reflective cylinder discovers that it is not a stain but a skull, an anamorphosis that metamorphoses the blot into a memento mori. The skull demands that the viewer move, change point of view, abandon the frontal gaze that is satisfied with the shine of furs and metals. Death, displaced and distorted, claims its place and completes the triangle of meanings above, the sky and its measurements. In the middle, men and their endeavors. Below, death that relativizes everything. The skull is at once an optical trick and a metaphysical truth. It forces sight to become judgment and curiosity to turn into awareness. In keeping with that key, Holbein places a barely visible crucifix behind the green curtain, in the upper left corner, as if the sacred were veiled by worldly splendor, present, but not evident. The painting then is articulated as a secular catechism and a courtly examination of conscience, science and technique, music and calculation, luxury and diplomacy, but also crack, veil, and skull. Every object contains layers. The terrestrial globe points out places and opens routes. Its burnished brass turns the world into an apprehensible sphere, but also shows the limitations of the cartography of the time, with unknown areas and disputed toponyms, the map as desire. The celestial globe orders constellations, translates myth into geometry, although the sky itself remains unruly, reminding us that we measure patterns but do not master the vault. Sundials connect time and light. They measure the shadow that hurls the day toward its afternoon. The open book invites us to read rules, to negotiate intervals and dissonances. Arithmetic promises exactitude, music hints at concord. Both in human hands can create beauty or a justification for power. Holbein seems to say that knowledge is admirable and also insufficient, that another key is needed so that this table is not an altar of vanity. The key perhaps lies in the hidden crucifix and the oblique skull, in the idea that what is seen does not exhaust what is real, and that what is measurable does not fulfill what is true. The biography of the sitters irons the canvas onto the calendar. Jean de Dentiville, ambassador of Francis I at the English court, knew firsthand the elasticity of fortune and the prudence of words. He bore on his shoulders a post that was both mask and risk. Georges de Selve, a young and humanist bishop, was not only the priest of a see, he was a reader of ancient and contemporary authors, an interpreter of the world, a bridge between faith and reason. That both should pose together in London, in that particular year, condenses a program. France watches England. The church looks at its own fracture. Diplomacy meets science to present itself as culture. Holbein knows how to portray not only men but ideas dressed as men. The staging reinforces everything. The green curtain is a theatrical backdrop that suggests interiority and exclusion. Behind it there is something more that veiled Christ, but the here and now world imposes its brilliance. The geometric pavement, inspired by the cosmetic pavement of Westminster, anchors the scene on English soil. Its tesserae and marbles replicate a cosmology of circles and polygons, a mathematical order underfoot. The textiles, with their furs and silks, are materiality made into prestige. In their splendor there is also a shadow, the ease with which cloth is cut, stained, burned, sold. Dentiville's dagger, his medallion, the ermine-sleeved garment, are signs that can be read in the grammar of the court. De Selve's controlled gesture contrasts with the layman's firmer touch. Holbein makes volumes coexist with volumes, men with objects, faith with science, diplomacy with music. The entire painting is a concert of surfaces. The polished wood of the lute, the roughness of the tapestry, the turned metal, the paper lined with ink. Everything is presence, everything is sign. The history of the work prolongs the argument. It belonged to the Dentiville family and circulated discreetly until, after centuries of journeys and sales, it entered the National Gallery in London in 1890. There it was integrated into a public narrative that turned it into an emblem of the institution and a mandatory stop for those seeking to understand how art can think. Throughout its material life, the oak board suffered deformations, worn varnishes tinged its light amber, overpainting and interventions altered details. In 1996-97, an important restoration removed yellowish veils and returned balance to the tones, revived greens, blues and carmines, clarified inscriptions, and calibrated the reading of objects. There was controversy. Some specialists criticized adjustments to the anamorphic skull, an element so delicate that a minimal shift seems to denaturalize it, and questioned the degree of optical respect for the original. The controversy, however, brought to the forefront the very condition of the painting. It is a machine for seeing, a device of perspective, an invitation to the mobility of the eye. To restore it is to dialogue with its most radical trick. Since then, technical studies with reflectography, raking light, and pigment analysis have confirmed Holbein's sophistication and the stability of much of his workmanship. Tempera in the ground, extremely thin layers of oil, underdrawings that correct proportions, strokes that guide the final exactitude. Interpretations have mutated, as societies have. There were those who read in the broken string of the lute a direct allusion to the Reformation, Christian harmony broken by the schism. Others have seen in the oblique skull a mockery of courtly vanity or a severe meditation on the perishability of knowledge. The The triad of veiled crucifix, table of knowledge, tatamorphic skull allows Trinitarian readings of heaven, world, and death. The painting admits political readings, Franco-English diplomacy, philosophical ones, the relativity of point of view, theological ones, the invisible behind the veil, scientific ones, confidence in measurement, and musical ones, broken and possible concord. There are even iconological paths that suggest certain positions of instruments mark symbolic dates or hours of 1533, as if Holbein had wished to seal upon its surface the instant of a conjuncture. The modern viewer, accustomed to screens and selfies, discovers with surprise a work that already asked for a turn, a shift, optical participation. The painting is interactive before interactivity. There were no evident taboos nor censorship scandals, but there was indeed a silent subversion. Introducing a gigantic skull into the portrait of two powerful men was a gesture of intellectual courage. It does not diminish the sitters, it humanizes them. It reminds them, and reminds us that every calculation is made under the shadow of finitude. The work does not discredit science, it dignifies it by placing it in its place, not as idolatry but as a tool. Nor does it denigrate wealth. It strips it of absolutism and returns it to the rank of means. Devotion appears, discreetly, as a necessary background, not aggressive, a half-hidden Christ that withstands the noise of fabrics and woods. The painting has influenced generations who learned from it how to load a portrait with thought. It teaches that the genre can harbor theses and paradoxes, that detail is not adornment but argument, that a composition can be both inventory and meditation. Its footprint reaches contemporary visual culture in every work that forces the viewer to move, in every image that reveals another when seen from the side, in every piece that combines luxury and vanitas. At the same time, it remains a work of immediate beauty. It suffices to look at the embroidery of the tapestry, the tenderness in the varnish that covers the wood of the lute, the softness of skin under skin, to feel that Holbein's technique is not cold, it is love for the real. Anyone who plants themselves before the ambassadors would do well to traverse it in bands. Above the curtain, the crucifix that peeks out, the celestial globe that promises constancies. In the middle, the men, their sleeves, their hands, their faces, the upper shelf with solar instruments. Below, the shelf of the earth, the maps, the recorders, the broken string, the book, the terrestrial globe with its names, and then finally, let the impossible diagonal of the skull cross the retina and the spirit. That path, which goes from the apparent to the latent, is a version of the vital journey from pride to awareness, from catalogue to judgment, from noise to prayer. Few paintings ask so much and give so much in return. The account of its recent conservation adds an ethical dimension. To restore is not to erase time, it is to dialogue with it. In that dialogue, the Ambassadors has reaffirmed itself as a privileged witness to a crossroads. We record science without idolizing it, music without idealizing it, luxury without absolutizing it. And we admit the last datum, the one that neither globe nor quadrant domesticates death, which in the painting becomes an optical pedagogy. There is a contemporary lesson in that device. Changing perspective is not relativism. It is an expansion of meaning. The skull exists, even if frontal vision denies it. Reality includes what we do not look at. If a guide were to take you before the work and give you a single piece of advice, perhaps he would say, move. Not only to find the skull, move between knowledge and faith, between object and symbol, between shine and shadow. Learn to see as one who also listens, hear the broken string as a warning, hear the silence of the recorder as the expectation of concord, hear the whisper of the hidden crucifix as discreet presence. Then the painting will cease to be a great portrait of two illustrious men and will become a mirror of your instruments, your ambitions, your veils, and your skull. And you will understand why Holbein, with his modesty as craftsman and his greatness as pictorial philosopher, gave in 1533 one of the most eloquent answers to the question that still beats today: what can art do when the world cracks? It can measure, it can dazzle, it can veil, and above all, it can teach us how to look. The visual history of the ambassadors does not end at the National Gallery, nor in art books. It continues every time someone stops before that pair of figures and allows themselves to be hypnotized by the unsettling calm they emanate. There is in their faces a serenity that is not peace but calculation, a serenity that belongs to those who know that the order they represent is made of fragile agreements, of balances between politics and faith, between time and eternity. Jean de Dinteville and Georges Tasselve do not pose as heroes nor as saints, but as men trapped on the threshold of an era that began to turn faster than their own understanding of the world. That tension between confidence in reason and the shadow of mystery is the heart of the painting. Holbein, with his almost scientific precision, converts matter into idea. The objects, arranged with geometric rigor, seem a demonstration of human dominion over nature, but at the same time, the painter leaves cracks through which the invisible filters. The broken string of the lute not only speaks of religious discord, it is also a reminder that no harmony lasts forever. The crucifix, hidden behind the curtain, not only symbolizes hidden faith, it suggests that the divine observes in silence, waiting for man to recognize his limit. The deformed skull, that optical trick that disconcerts and fascinates, is a lesson in itself. All knowledge needs to move in order to find the truth. If one remains at the same point of view, the world seems an incomprehensible enigma. If one dares to look from another angle, what seemed absurd reveals itself as a warning. That teaching of movement, of changing one's gaze, makes the ambassadors an almost modern painting. There is no other 16th century painting that demands so much participation from the viewer. Holbein turns passive contemplation into an intellectual act. The observer not only sees, but thinks, compares, shifts. In that invitation to move lies the seed of modern doubt, of the science that no longer accepts fixed truths. That is why many art historians consider this work a meditation on knowledge itself, a visual equation between faith, reason, and mortality. But the painting is not exhausted in the philosophical message. Within it beats also a political reflection. In 1533, Europe was divided. The Protestant Reformation broke the continent's balance. Kings competed for alliances, and ambassadors were key pieces of a diplomacy that tried to maintain peace. Holbein knew those tensions well. He worked at the court of Henry VIII, a monarch who would soon challenge the Pope and reconfigure the map of Christendom. Portraying two Frenchmen in that context was more than a commission. It was a declaration of balance, an image diplomatic in itself. The men represented neither argue nor preach. They observe, meditate, pose before a world in decomposition. The table between them, with its instruments and books, is also a field of symbolic negotiation. Science and faith, calculation and contemplation must coexist or everything collapses. In this sense, the ambassadors can be read as a manifesto of humanism. Holbein, heir to the spirit of Erasmus and the erudition of Basel, turns painting into a visual encyclopedia of Renaissance learning. Every object has its reason for being. The celestial globe refers to the divine order, the terrestrial globe to the political order. The measuring instruments speak of the new confidence in mathematics. The books and recorders allude to education and to music as metaphors of harmony. Everything is ordered, everything seems stable, but the skull at the foot of the painting introduces the inevitable crack. It is as if the painter whispered, "Yes, you measure the world, but the world does not belong to you. Yes, you accumulate knowledge, but time will see to dispersing it." The vanity of learned men becomes the hidden theme of the portrait. For centuries, the painting was admired for its technical virtuosity, but few grasped its symbolic depth. The public saw two magnificent portraits, a display of luxury and science. It was not until the 19th century that historians rediscovered the anamorphic skull and understood that the painting contained a secret philosophy. That rediscovery changed its interpretation forever. What appeared to be a catalogue of erudition turned out to be a meditation on death. Since then, the ambassadors has fascinated generations of thinkers, artists, and philosophers. Walter Benjamin considered it one of the first works in which the image becomes thought. Roland Barthes described it as the vanitas of knowledge. The 20th century added new readings. Some saw in it an allegory of the conflict between science and religion. Others, an early representation of the duality between image and truth, between appearance and essence. In recent times, it has even been interpreted as a reflection on the very act of seeing. The deformed skull anticipates the modernity of point of view, the notion that reality depends on the position of the observer. Every era has found in Holbein a mirror for its doubts. In the digital age, his message remains valid. We live surrounded by information, yet we still fail to look from the right angle. In technical terms, the painting continues to astonish for its command of light and color. Holbein achieves an impossible balance between precision and poetry. The texture of the fabrics is so real one can almost feel the weight of the fur or the cold of the metal. The reflections on the instruments are exact. The folds of the green curtain open like a liquid architecture that envelops the scene. Yet behind that formal perfection lies a silent disquiet. Nothing in the work is static. The objects seem suspended in a time halted just before change, as if the entire Renaissance order were about to crumble. The restorations of the 20th and 21st centuries have made it possible to discover the fineness of the original stroke. Under layers of darkened varnish, there appeared livelier colors, details in the eyes of the sitters, small inscriptions on the instruments, even the trace of invisible corrections that show how Holbein sought the exact balance of perspective. The study with infrared reflectography revealed that the skull was carefully calculated by means of projective geometry, something extraordinary for its time. The restoration also confirmed that the crucifix behind the curtain was painted with an almost secret delicacy, perhaps intentionally veiled so that only the patient viewer would discover it. Today, before that panel that has survived wars, relocations, and centuries of interpretation, the modern viewer feels a mixture of fascination and vertigo. The Ambassadors is not a painting to be viewed only once. It is an infinite text that changes with each observer. It reminds us that knowledge, however vast, does not stop death, but also teaches us that art can make visible the truth that hides in shadow. In a world where power and information seem to dominate everything, Holbein leaves us a message even more current than in 1533. Mastery of the world without awareness of death is only another form of blindness. Whoever contemplates this work attentively will understand that Renaissance art was neither naive nor complacent. It was a mirror of thought, a machine for thinking. Holbein does not paint only what he sees, he paints what he knows and what he fears. In the eyes of Dinteville and Selve are reflected the curiosity and melancholy of an entire era. And in the dark background where the crucifix hides there throbs the hope that, beyond globes, measurements, and treaties, there is something that gives meaning to chaos. That is why the Ambassadors remains. 500 years later, one of the deepest paintings in the world, a double portrait that contains, in reality, the portrait of all of us.